with me now, Republican Congressman from Texas' 27th District, Representative Blake Farenthold. Congressman Farenthold, thanks for being here, sir.
Happy to be with you.
All right, tell me the inside scoop from the Hill right now. This government shutdown, it looks like it might be averted. What do you think is going to happen?
I think we've gotten to the point we're not going to have to worry about a government shutdown. The Republicans certainly don't want a government shutdown, and I suspect we're going to be able to bring enough Democrats along to get her done.
Right, and you think that'll be without the funding, without the $1 billion funding for the border wall?
Oh, that's been one of the more controversial issues, but the real issue is securing the border. How it's done is secondary to me and a lot of Republicans. I think the border wall is one way to do it, but you can also do it with technology and sufficient manpower. And I guarantee you, our Border Patrol folks could use some more manpower.
Right. Is there funding for those types of things in this spending bill? You know, border security or technology, manpower. Is that funding included in this spending bill?
We are looking for ways to increase border security funding. That is one of the priorities we have.
All right, well, hopefully we'll see that. I mean, to be honest, from outside the Beltway to us regular American citizens, it looks a little bit like President Trump flinched on this one, like he let the Democrats have their way. And I understand that he has to compromise in a sense because he needs a few Democratic votes in the Senate here. But doesn't caving like this, pulling out the funding for the border wall in an effort to compromise, doesn't that kind of give Democrats ammunition in the future to say, hey, if we make a fuss, you know, that changes the president's mind?
Well, the president is a master negotiator, and this doesn't mean the border wall doesn't get built. It just means the funding for it doesn't come out of this spending program. Whether we go with Ted Cruz's bill to get El Chapo to pay for it with forfeited assets, or we find another way to get it done, the border wall is not off the table. It's just we're going to fund border security a different way for the time being. Or at least that's what I'm seeing. The final draft of the legislation isn't out yet, so we're not entirely sure all the details yet.
Right, and that El Chapo bill, by the way, that is genius. That's brilliant on the part of Senator Ted Cruz. Very smart. El Chapo's drug money, funding, build the wall from the drug money. I love it. I love it. But let me ask you, what would be different in September if Trump, punts this to September to the next spending bill? What would change Democrats' minds by that time? If they were almost willing to shut down the government in order to prevent funding the border wall now, what would change in September?
I think we'll see what's happened overall with respect to border security. I think President Trump is still committed to finding a way to get Mexico to pay for this. And I think as some of those things more come together, it's still going to happen. I wouldn't write it off. The president is proven to be a man of his word, but he's also a negotiator. So the real goal is border security. And in some places, a wall is going to be necessary. But you go to some places in my home state of Texas, like Big Bend National Park, we've learned from the Israelis, the real issue is vanishing time. If we can track people with a UAV or through cameras and sensors in time to get a Border Patrol agent there to intercept them, we've secured the border. But in a metropolitan area, somebody who's crossed the border illegally can just disappear into the store and they've vanished. So you need a wall in those areas to delay people enough to get an agent there. It's a multi-layered approach is how we're going to secure the border.
Right, and I don't disagree with that. I mean, I think that's smart. It was never really realistic, or like I said at the beginning of the program, the border wall itself was sort of a euphemism for border security. It just seems to me, the part, I guess, that bothers me personally is that there's funding for Planned Parenthood in the spending bill, but not enough funding, not what the president asked in regards to border security or the border wall. And that seems to me, it seems to be like the Republicans are losing when they're in power.
Well, you've got to remember that the Republicans have a majority in both houses, but the rules in the Senate are such that it requires 60 votes to get a cloture on something. So there is going to have to be some reach out to the Democrats to get things done, and as a result, we're not going to be able to get 100% of what we want unless the voters help us out in 2 years in the next election.
Right, and hopefully that will be the case. But in the meantime, why not use a power play, something like holding the health care subsidies hostage, something that the Democrats aren't going to want to let go, and so they're forced to kind of compromise instead of the Republicans in the majority being the ones that kind of cave and compromise on this?
Again, I don't so much see it as caving and compromising, because we're not saying it's not going to get done. It's just going to get pushed down the road a little bit. And remember, the health care is a little bit, we've got a delicate balance right now with the health care. It looks like we've gotten together a Republican majority in the House to repeal Obamacare, as the Tuesday group in the Freedom Caucus have come together on something. It looks like we have enough votes to pass next week.
Right, and do you have any idea what day that's going to be? That was quite something. The Freedom Caucus getting on board with this. We could see the repeal of Obamacare just past the 100-day mark for President Trump, which would be quite something.
Well, I tell you, I sure would have liked to have gotten everything filed and done so we could have voted on it Friday, but I would imagine it would be early next week.
All right, well, we'll look forward to that. Congressman Farenthold, thank you so much for being on the show, sir. It's always great to talk to you.
Call me anytime.
Will do.